Hello guys, before I start this video, this is the disclaimer that needs to be put up. Usually I don't put these kinds of disclaimers in my videos because it's common sense at this point that if someone out there has a disagreement, that we'd agree to disagree when it comes to that specific opinion. But if a lot of these comments that I received, put together with the controversial or glowing reception of the thing being discussed today are anything to go by, this kind of disclaimer does need to be heard more now than ever. If you in any sort of way, like, dislike, or have a neutral opinion on the product being discussed in particular, I suggest you either hear me out so that you know where I'm coming from regarding the product being discussed in particular, or get out now and watch another video, because you might not like what you're about to hear. Because regardless of what some individuals like to believe, I don't cater to the opinions of other people because their opinions are not my own. And I'm not going to forcibly change my opinion on a certain piece of media because someone else told me otherwise, whether if the product in specific is received somewhere between being liked or considered mediocre but I don't like, things that I find overhated but I still have problems with, things that I find mediocre, things that received more hate than praise that I do actually like, or things that I outright dislike but a lot of people like. And to make things as clear as possible, any and all reviews where I did end up saying something that sounds similar to something that someone else said was just by coincidence, because I always wait until after I get done scripting my reviews before watching someone else's review in particular, and that's why I'm putting this disclaimer on this video in specific. If you like or dislike the thing being discussed in this video, all power to you. Just please try to be respectful after you watch this video. This video is not to cater to the fans or haters of the thing being discussed. This is to give out my perspective. Don't be like this individual is what I'm saying, because for over a year after I uploaded my review on Robot Boy, he's been frequently commenting on my video to shove his own opinion on the show down my throat, even after I told him that I respect his opinion on the show and that I just dislike it for the reasons that I already discussed, getting up to the point where I ended up having to block him from my channel because he just wouldn't stop. If you don't like the review in general because of problems that you have, that's fine, but if you're gonna be here just to get on to me for not having the same opinion as you, then this is not the video for you. But if you already know these things, continue on. With all that said, enjoy the video. So, as of the time that I am scripting this video, it is August of 2024, and Saving Bikini Bottom, the Sandy Cheeks movie, came out on Netflix. And at the moment, the movie is getting a large amount of backlash, with people saying that it's the worst SpongeBob movie, and that it's worse than Sponge on the Run. I'll have to determine that for myself because I haven't seen that movie yet, and I don't like determining whether something is bad yet just because somebody else says that it is. In my personal opinion, I still think that Saving Bikini Bottom is harmless enough, with the only thing to actually dislike about it being the special effects and its cringe-inducing moments. Well, I've heard that Saving Bikini Bottom was not the only SpongeBob movie that was going to be released that involves a specific character. I also heard that Plankton was going to be getting his movie, as well as Patrick. And as of the time that this review is being scripted, another SpongeBob movie has been leaked, and so because I gave Saving Bikini Bottom its own review, despite the fact that the movie has not been released yet, I thought I might as well do the same thing with the Plankton movie. I decided to go ahead and watch the entire movie to see what I think about it. You know, I'm going to be completely honest and blunt as I possibly can. I don't dislike Saving Bikini Bottom, the Sandy Cheeks movie, as much as many other people have been hating it as of late. But the film is harmless, and in my personal opinion, I personally don't find it to be that annoying. The Plankton movie, on the other hand, is a film that I actually dislike, and I am not giving this movie a single shred of defenses. Yep, this is the first bad SpongeBob movie that I've seen, at least in my own personal opinion. opinion. What is the problem with this movie? Well, let's start off with the premise. So, the best way to sum up the premise of this one is that it's pretty much a combination between both Sponge out of water and Plankton gets the boot. Except instead of Plankton needing to learn about teamwork, Plankton needs to learn how to appreciate his own wife, like he had to do in some episodes of the series. Basically, think of the episodes Single Cell Anniversary, Walking the Plankton, Plankton Gets the Boot, and Lockdown for Love, but it's all combined into a feature-length movie, and you basically have this movie. However, you make it to where Plankton is apathetic towards everyone, including Bikini Bottom, throughout the entire movie, until he's forced to have empathy by Sandy. But before that, they basically did what could be considered character assassination, as well as throwing in elements to make this an unbearable experience, including elements with Plankton, as well as the other characters screaming and going on a sugar rush as a result, adding an extra layer of obnoxiousness in the film as well. That's the first major issue that I have with this movie. This movie, just like Saving Bikini Bottom and Sponge on the Run, instead of committing to the idea of being a movie that revolves around Plankton, basically copies things that we've seen in the past and does absolutely nothing new with it. We've seen Plankton and Karen have a rocky relationship in the show already, many times in fact, to the point where it's honestly getting exhausting at this point. The only difference being that this time, Plankton is a lot more insufferable, and Karen has been pushed far enough to the point where she ends up becoming the antagonist of the movie. Though, while Tsunami from the fourth movie was more pathetic and lame, Karen in this movie is extremely sympathetic, and that Plankton ends up being the one who pushed Karen into this. Though, if there is something that you could at least give Saving Bikini Bottom credit for, it's that the film at least did things. Granted, the effects in that movie are absolutely atrocious, and the film was the first movie set in Texas, but it did things. The Plankton movie has filler for the first 40 minutes of its runtime, and the film doesn't go anywhere with what it's trying to do until literally over 40 minutes in. The first portion of the movie is focused on the plotline of SpongeBob and Plankton getting their hands on the equipment from the college that Plankton went to for the older version of Karen, but it ends up being a waste of time anyway, because as soon as Plankton puts the old version of Karen back together, it ends up being useless anyway because both of them end up merging anyway. So, the purpose of SpongeBob and Plankton getting the old version of Karen was all for
nothing! Absolutely nothing!
And then when that piece of filler is done and over with, the story actually goes somewhere. That's 45 minutes out of an hour and 26-minute movie wasted on something that was not going to accomplish anything whatsoever. But what really cements this movie to make me detest it so much is what they did to Plankton. Now, I know what you'll be typing to me once you see this video. I get that this is the point of Plankton's character. In the original show, he's supposed to be an evil genius that is apathetic towards everyone, including his own wife. However, in this movie, he is extremely out of character and is reduced to a one-dimensional character that completely misses the point of Plankton's character. In the original series, even in its worst episodes, the point of Plankton's character was not that he was wanting to steal the secret formula. Plankton was wanting to take over the fast food world in general. Stealing the secret formula was only part of what he was wanting to do. An instance where this movie completely glosses over Plankton's goals was when Karen decided to do something to get Plankton customers, and as a result, Plankton is extremely ungrateful, and basically decides to ruin what Karen did for him. Did they not watch any of Plankton's episodes before making this movie? The episode Chum Fricassee had Plankton open to the idea of having an item that is not the Krabby Patty, and what this movie is doing is literally the exact same thing. And there are also other points, even in some newer episodes, where Plankton temporarily gets customers through other things outside of Krabby Patties. And on top of this movie turning Plankton into the one-dimensional version of himself, they also make him a much bigger jerk than he was beforehand. To put this in perspective, this movie not only rips off the second movie, but they also rip off the episode Plankton Gets the Boot. In that episode, Plankton and Karen have a falling out that results in them splitting apart, leading Plankton to have to look for a way to get her back. And they also take from the episode Karen 2.0 by having Plankton build a new version of Karen to replace the old one. But in all honesty, this is definitely the worst thing that showed Karen and Plankton's relationship in the entire franchise, because Plankton is freaking insufferable in this movie. I'll get to what he does in this movie in just a second, but allow me to clear up what some people are going to say. Now yes, I understand that Plankton was also like this in the show. There are times where Plankton and Karen would argue with each other, to the point where Plankton cheats on her and enemy-in-law, but Plankton did still care about her, even as late as the recent seasons. And even at his worst moments, disregarding Lockdown for Love, he did still have a heart in the end. It didn't take others forcing him to get him to realize that what he did was wrong. Single Cell Anniversary was one of the better episodes of Season 6. And while yes, Plankton was very dislikable and Plankton Gets the Boot, as well as Lockdown for Love, I would take all of Plankton's worst episodes that showed him in a bad light than to ever watch this movie ever again. Because Plankton is absolutely awful in this movie. Immediately when Plankton finally gets customers for his restaurant, he acts like a spoiled brat because he can't get his hands on his precious Krabby Patty secret formula. Despite the fact that he was literally open to the idea of selling something other than Krabby Patties in the show, and then basically disregards Karen's ideas, despite the fact that Plankton in the show would have been open to the idea of this. Because he didn't just want to steal Krabby Patties, he also wanted an actual business. He was like this again in the episode Chum Fricassee, and then he basically causes Karen to go on a rampage when he sets a flamethrower to the restaurant and just calls Karen his, quote, assistant. Again, missing the point of his character. Plankton in the second movie cried when he had to get rid of Karen when he and Spongebob had to make the time machine, and in the season 9 episode Plankton's Pet, he's worried sick for Spot when he ends up going missing. In this movie, he straight up doesn't care about anybody. Even during the pointless Act 2 breakup between him and Spongebob, where he sings a song that is sad at first, but then near the end, before it gets interrupted by Karen, he sounds proud and confident about himself being a jerk, and then sounds ungrateful when Sandy, Pearl, Mrs. Puff, and Spongebob saves him from getting frozen. Yeah, he ends up getting empathy for Karen near the end of the movie, but this still massively misses the point of his character. He shouldn't have had to learn this lesson in the first place, because this is something that he already knows! Sorry, I just needed to let off a bit of steam right there. Let's just move this along before I go crazy. And as a movie that is based off of an animated series, this movie fundamentally misses the point of SpongeBob, right down to how this movie retcons things. Just like what I said back during my review on Camp Coral, this movie once again, just like Kitchen Sponge from that show, rewrites how Plankton wants to steal the Krabby Patty secret formula. Plankton and Karen see the Krusty Krab from across the street, he tries a Krabby Patty, and makes it his life goal to steal the formula. Even though Friend or Foe already gave us an origin on this, and it's already bad enough that this movie fundamentally disregards Friend or Foe, it also disregards Camp Coral, because Mr. Krabs and Plankton should already know each other by this movie's own logic. But anyways, I think I did enough rambling for this review. What are my overall thoughts and opinions on this movie? Well, if I didn't already make this clear, I despise this movie a lot. Would I go and say that this is the worst SpongeBob movie? Not yet, because I've yet to have watched Sponge on the Run, and I'm not judging that movie yet until I see it for myself. But what I can say is this. While yes, Saving Bikini Bottom, the Sandy Cheeks movie has the worst effects, I hate this movie more because it's a lot more insulting and infuriating than that movie is. And let me be as clear as I can. Better visuals does not mean that a movie is better. And this movie is a prime example of that. And in terms of movies reviewed for Sean's yearly reviews so far, this movie is still better than Raya and the Last Dragon because it's more harmful. The Tom and Jerry 2021 movie is better than this movie because it's less insulting and could have worked without Kayla. So overall, Saving Bikini Bottom, not worth the bashing. The Plankton movie, on the other hand, worth all the bashing indeed.
Next on Nick, it's a
Look back! I look back!
Monster House. Directed by Gil Kennan.
everything